Well, let's go ahead and get rolling. Linda can catch up here.
You having another one, Jim?
Hang on. Ready? We're on air, guys. So, City Council work session agenda for Monday, February 24th. Thomas J. Smith, Council Chambers, City Hall. Number one is going to be on the proposed regular agenda for March 2nd will be a public hearing for consideration of sale of property locally known as 822 Linden Street, Burlington, Iowa, with conditions. Mr. Tislin, please.
This is property we acquired through the abandoned building program at the corner of 9th and Linden. This is south of Oak Street, somewhat behind Oak Street, former Oak Street School area. We have received a couple bids for the property. It is a one-story, two-bedroom, one-bath home. Does need quite a bit of work, like the homes that we acquire. Any plumbing, electrical has to be inspected and signed off that such items meet or are brought up to code prior to occupancy. Again, a licensed plumber, electrician. Sidewalks and parking areas improved as needed. All permits received and codes met as applicable for work and occupancy of the home. We do not allow occupancy of the home until those items are met. So someone buying it, intending to move in there, they still have to fix it up to some minimum standards before moving in. Work initiated within 60 days and completed 180 days. Do have two bids on the property, both at $500 currently. So.
All right, we'll have a little bid fest then. Sounds good. Anybody at council have any questions on that?
I shouldn't.
No? Okay. No, thanks. Let's pass those down. Moving on, public hearing for consideration of the 2020 general obligation corporate purpose and refunding loan agreements in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $16 million.
This will be to refinance two bond issues from the several years back for savings. We have Series 220A is $5.4 million of bonds to be refinanced, and Series B will be $4.2 million to be refinanced. Those are both ones that Travis reviewed last week when he presented at the council meeting. I think it was about $300,000 of savings total between the two issues.
I think that's what he said, yeah.
And the remainder of the funding, we had done the short-term borrowing in December, really kind of to work with the waterworks as they were doing some borrowing and to stay under bank qualification caps. Can't borrow more than $10 million in a year that's bank qualified for taxation purposes. When we borrowed that in December, that was 4.8 million, right in that range. The total of, that we're looking to actually borrow on that Series C, there's an additional, hate trying to go through this and find the numbers. Another 800,000 that we're borrowing on top of it. It's about 5.5 million, and that's the TIF project for the flood protection, this next stage of the flood protection, and then a street project that Nick is doing for this summer. We will have multiple steps going on throughout this process. This council meeting, she didn't get the resolutions in, but you'll have resolutions this next meeting after the hearing, expressing intent to enter into loan agreements, have also approving the preliminary official statements for GO corporate purpose and refunding bond series 220A, 220B, and 220C in an amount not to exceed the 16 million. So there will be some follow-up steps at the end of the public hearing that we'll have to take. Bob Johnson just didn't have those ready for the council packet,
Okay.
which already was long enough.
Yeah.
At 150 pages.
Yeah, I saw that.
It was a tough one. Anybody have any questions for Jim on that? No? Okay. We will move on to number 3 then. Public hearing, consideration of the 2020 amendment to the urban renewal plan for the Burlington Consolidated Urban Renewal Area related to the use of incremental property tax revenues.
So anytime that we look to use TIF financing for a project, we have to amend the plan because it has to be specifically spelled out in a plan. We had a meeting that where the county and the school were invited to participate in to be able to update them. That's part of the process to make sure that we keep in line with what state requirements are. The projects that are being added to the plan, there's two different pieces of that. One would be a $450,000 cash payment to merge, reimbursable for the demolition of the former police department building and the adjacent structure. And the second piece would be for the development agreement with merge. That would provide a TIF rebate over 10 years, the maximum not to exceed the $2 million.
Okay.
And you see the public hearing on that development agreement is next item.
Yeah.
So it has its own public hearing for that development agreement that we're required to hold, but it also is added to the plan. Two separate stages, but they both have to have the hearings held. And this one is a little bit different because we have to go through the process of notification on what we're doing with the property for disposing of it and allowing for that TIF rebate to go out.
To do.
There will be a follow-up step that goes with these after. We'll have the resolution after the public hearing. For the first public hearing, we'll have a resolution approving the 2020 amendment to the urban renewal plan. And we will also, subsequent to the approving a development agreement, which would be at the end of that second or last public hearing here for the $2 million, we'll be setting a date for hearing on the disposition of city-owned property. Too many stages to go through, but just to, we have to treat the selling the property or disposing of the property to merge as a separate action item after we do these other steps.
Okay.
And we also have to have a 30-day notice on that public hearing, so that one would be held in April.
Confidence is pretty high the project is moving forward, though.
Yeah, I mean, the main contingency on this project from their side, I mean, they did a lot of background research already from the environmental side, trying to get an idea what the costs were. It's more the housing tax credits that are on the back end, and they seem to feel pretty confident just based on the track record they've had with other projects of being able to get that. But that is gonna be something that's a contingency for them to ultimately take over that property.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that? No? All right. Moving on to number 5 then, public hearing, consideration for plans and specifications for the 2020 Dankworth Park Tennis Courts resurfacing project. Eric?
So this is putting out to bid a project at the Dankworth Park Tennis Courts. We have 5 courts there. Looking to resurface the courts with a 25-year warranty. That would be a warranty on the crack over the next 25 years. It does require repainting every 5 to 7 years at a cost approximately $20,000 or so, 25. Wanting to see, I guess, what bids we get back, estimating around 180,000, give or take a little bit, but wanted to see that. So looking to receive bids on March 24th, 2020, and then once we get those bids, conferring with council on how to proceed at that point.
This is larger than the original project that was budgeted in the CIP. Something that's going, I know that there's discussion still at like Burlington School District about where do they fit within tennis courts. Some of those are going on at the same time. We would like to, if we're gonna do the project, we would really prefer to have this larger scope project occur. But we're still evaluating as we move through what happens with Burlington and their some of the decisions they're making and where that might fit in with what we're looking to do too prior to the any bid opening occurring on this.
In the past, we've talked about putting together some kind of fee schedule. Is that something we're still working on, just across the board for those larger events?
We're in a position where we're trying to see some, let's just say, suffice to say yes.
Eric, were there some private monies that were maybe being raised for this project?
We have an individual with the former tennis association is looking to raise funds. He was trying to reapply for 501c3 status, but that takes some time. And at this point, there's a couple $1,000s. He was hopeful that there may be $20,000 to $30,000, but we have to proceed as if there's not. And if there are funds raised, that potentially could be used for the repainting every 5 years as well. So, but we've had discussions with local individuals on that.
Yeah, I appreciate their efforts. I know it's a lot of work and it's time intensive to get that stuff through.
We did look at USTA grants as well. The requirements of those of programming and then having youth courts would probably be a wash on the money received versus having to then program the courts every summer and then repaint, having to add additional painting and nets for youth courts that we already have at Perkins. So at this time, we're not proceeding with that because it'd basically be a wash, and then we'd be on the hook to have youth tennis programming throughout the summer that we just don't have, we'd have to hire additional staff to do, so.
Okay, any other thoughts or concerns from council on that one? No, we're gonna move on. Number 6 is a resolution approving for multifamily unit production rental disaster recovery fund contract number 08 DRH-218 with the Iowa Economic Development Authority for the TAMA 2 project at 300-310 Jefferson. Is that TAMA 2 is TWO or
It's
2?
on the contract document that way,
It's two,
because
okay.
I asked
Okay.
about that too.
All right. I see Mr. Wells is here. And Jim, you want to go first? You want to hit area?
This is, again, reapplication of funds through Iowa Economic Development Authority. This is something that does have to go through the city. We're the applicant on this. We already have a development agreement with Mr. Wells for the project as a subrecipient. That was approved by City Council a few months ago. At this point, this is kind of a standard format. Does have to go through all the procurement or environmental and different stages of that that are kind of some of the fine details within here. But this essentially would award a little over $2.5 million for the project. And Mr. Wells has some details on timing moving forward and some schematics here I can show as well.
Welcome.
Thank you. I have a handout of
Okay.
the slides.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Oh, I wanted to put 2 of them.
So since, members of the council, thank you for the audience today. I appreciate the opportunity. We have continued to work on the base design that you've seen before, and the footprint, unit sizes have not changed. Kind of in summary, we have followed up on the suggestion of the balconies and the architectural character, and we've removed the balconies. And we have on the street sides, and we have retained the balconies on the interior courtyard side. And we're proposing that we have, in lieu of the balconies, a metal railing that's mounted flush with the building. It'll add decorative element and I think make the environment look richer. Plus, we won't have the balconies projecting out into the street right away, and I think it's a much better historical response, and I do appreciate this suggestion. And we have done that. Since we received the award letter in December, and we had meetings with IEDA to just review the basic provisions of the award letter. They issued the contract, which is what you're considering. We find it in order, and the contract was after conversations we had had with them, and it's essentially in the same order, pretty much identical to the one before. It is our intent to proceed as quickly as possible after it's approved. And kind of the next critical steps are, once you decide it's okay and approve it and it gets signed, right when that happens, we will immediately contact the State Office of Historic Preservation and get meetings going. And the meetings are for this architectural mitigation. And we will be encouraging them for the quickest timeline possible. And so there are initial meetings with them and their initial fact-finding from the reports we've submitted to them. And then they'll interface with the Burlington Historical Group, and there will be a joint meeting together. And my biggest concern is just moving that as fast as we can. That will affect our project cost a little bit, and I don't think it's going to be a deal breaker, but we were able during the demolition to save quite a few artifacts, and so we have a lot to work with. They have reminded me it's not a matter of just putting some of those parts and pieces back on the building, but what is the story and the historical content. So that'll be worked out with SHPO and the City of Burlington Historical Group. In terms of what happened after the award letter was issued, we immediately looked at our numbers. The award was reduced about $700,000 from what we had applied for. So that put us back to ground zero with our banks we've talked to, and we have financing pretty much put together at this point. So I see just proceeding as quickly as we can. We would like to do the construction in 2 phases, and the first phase would be as quickly as we can get approval, which would be to stabilize and restore the existing masonry walls that if you walk to the site today that you would see. Those form our courtyard. The existing grade is the grade of the courtyard. There'll be about 8 inches of black soil fill on top of it, but those are going to form a permanent guardrail to the alleys. And we want to begin that work sooner than later, just to clean up the site, and it helps our construction phase better. We're going to ask the state Office of Historic Preservation for permission to go ahead with that sooner, and just because we think that will let us deliver the project in a faster fashion. The last week I did send an email through, and I don't need to go over all of that, but everything in that email is accurate as far as what we're doing. And then regarding proceeding, what we're planning to do is keep you updated very frequently on the mitigation, and we're gonna I think we're gonna want a little help from the city as far as encouraging the state to speed that along. So with that, I'd be happy to address any questions or concerns that you have.
Remind me, you're gonna do the rails with the French doors, the railings, and that's gonna be both on the south and east side, correct?
South and east side.
Both sides, okay.
And
Looks like
that's
that,
kind of
okay.
a view of that.
Okay, outstanding. And balconies on the inside. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Wells?
Maybe you said it, but I missed it. You said the construction was gonna be in two phases. One stabilized the existing walls, and what was stage two?
The project, the rest of the project, yes.
That makes sense.
And then you also had a note on there, project's gonna be phased to finish the apartments first, then do the street level infill.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes. Right now, the way that the grant is written is that we have to get the apartments finished first and available for rent, before other phases of the project. It has to be the highest priority. And it makes sense, building a building like that we would finish from the top down.
Sounds good to me.
I saw Steve Freevert was glad when you said you weren't just gonna super glue the historic elements on.
Yep.
Just a point of clarification for those who weren't involved in the earlier phases of this. CDBG is a grant, but it does flow through us, so during the course of the project, we have some liability if the project isn't delivered. We do have Southeast Iowa Regional Planning doing the oversight on this, so pay estimates as the project proceeds, the pay estimates will come from the developer they'll be reviewed by Southeast Iowa to make sure that, everything's in order, that Davis-Bacon and everything wages have been paid, all those verifications have been done in conformance with CDBG. Then we will process a grant drawdown and reimburse the developer as that project proceeds. So we are a conduit on that. We don't have a long-term liability, but the city takes on a piece of liability during the course of the construction prior to completion.
Does anybody have any questions? I would, just on a personal note, I'd like to thank you for hanging in there. You were dealt some bad cards there for a while, so thank you very much for
Thank
investing in
you,
our
and
city.
I do appreciate your patience, because it's been a long haul. Yeah.
Look forward to seeing some dirt turned.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Number 7, now Jim, do we want to treat these two separately, or you want to talk about them together?
7 and 8 are two items that we've talked about the last couple of meetings. American Queen has changed their document. If you were to look in there for compensation, they're now providing what they call about an approximate $1 per passenger with some minimums based on the ship sizes. So the docking fees for the American Queen, the $450, American Countess $250, and American Duchess $250.
And that's where Viking was at $1 originally.
It's $1 per passenger from Viking. I still have one clarification that I haven't gotten confirmation from American Queen. Their language talks about priority in docking dates, times, and locations. We're trying to make these two work together, and I've told them that we need these to work together. I sent back a revision that they would have the northernmost docking location for priority, Viking having the southern docking location for priority, so that the two could theoretically be here on the same day. We haven't gotten anything back from American Queen that they've accepted that final piece. We need that for really to make sure these work together. But Viking's okay with the language that's included in here. Duration,
And the northern dock is normally where the Americans were going, right? Okay.
that's where they've been in the
Thank
past,
you.
so it's their historic location.
Now, just a quick question. I listened to the meeting last week that I wasn't here for, but
I didn't.
if we get the the docking grant, this is kind of a moot point then, isn't it?
No, we'll still have to have docking locations on that.
But we'll be able to provide service to either one of them, even if they're both here.
Yeah, but we still need language in here that that makes it work. This is, I mean, the way this is worded in here, it would sound that I couldn't have, if they have a date that they select to be here, that they would have priority on that day, that Viking couldn't have another one here. We want them both to be able to be here the same day. So regardless, we need that language change. And right now, we have three piers, or 3 mooring points down there, or is it just 2?
We have one main mooring point that was
But it
there.
has a spot for the front
pre-existing,
and then the
But
back.
with the flood wall project, we put 4
Okay.
cleats into the wall, but they have tiebacks that are part of the flood wall structure. So it's not like you can just go in there for the southern docking point and just bolt them in. There's a lot of weight that's associated with that. Should we not get the docking grant, we would have to create a mooring structure similar to the northern part out in the water. I wouldn't do that with Tiger just because of the federal requirements, but that's where the
That's where-
Viking monies come into
As they
play.
put money forward to do it, that's an offset towards
That
it.
would go further to the south.
Okay.
Finish, sorry about that, I interrupted you.
Well, that's fine.
Okay.
And, both of them have some timing issues with them. Viking, the one thing that is in there to be of note, theirs has an automatic renewal concept in here. I mean, right now, they're through 2023. This contract gives them another 5 years automatically. But then it would have subsequent 5-year automatic renewals if we don't notify them of a desire to see a change in the contract at least 2 years prior to one of those expirations. And so it's just gonna be on us and the chamber to make sure that we keep that tickler out there and keep it in mind if we have any issues that arise over time.
Did you just say tickler?
Yes.
You did.
And then Viking considered adding up to 50,000 for the cost of enhancements to the present dock.
That's the second mooring point that we talked about needing to construct.
Okay. Well, that's cool of them.
All right, does anybody have any other questions? Did you have anything to add, Chelsea? Okay. All right, sounds good. If there's no other questions, we'll move on to number 9, resolution approving the agreement with Burlington Riverfront Entertainment, also known as BRE, for the management of the riverfront properties for the next 6 years.
And what you see in here is based off of the proposal that we received from Burlington Riverfront Entertainment, and I'm certainly welcome one of you to come up and talk in regards to it. Tried to make sure that we incorporated all the points in their proposal for a 6-year agreement. We had a couple of additional things that we needed to take care of. For example, the Welcome Center, the store down there the Iowa store is no longer there, so that needed to be amended within the language, and I think there are a couple of other small items like that.
Yeah, we just had, of course, the name change, of course, because we had done the resolution to change our names with that. Along with that, the Iowa store. We also had, I believe, there was nothing too major through the whole thing. It was basically another one was Steamboat Days relinquishing their liquor license, which that is in the movement to be happening soon. So that way that BRE would hold that liquor license at beginning of 2021. The other part was the change of the dollars, which we had already talked about, so.
Yeah, so, and for reference, currently we're $250,000 annually. This would
Correct.
see that change effective January 1 this next year to $200,000 annually, paid in 2 separate installments of $100,000. And for the
Correct.
first 3 years, and then the second 3 years, reduce that to $175,000 annually, or $87,500.
And we
each
changed the
6 months.
payment way that happened in our reporting. It was originally quarterly. We changed it to semi-annually because of the fact that a lot of our events, it takes a long time to get all the numbers in, and we wanted to make sure that it was a little bit more feasible on the way the workflow happened.
There's a change in rental reimbursements as well.
Yes.
The legacy events currently come completely to the city. This would have it split 80-20 the way any other event is split, and puts all the negotiation responsibilities onto
To
BRE as
BRE,
opposed to us being on the center of a few of those.
Right. Which also helps because then we can actually add continual different events to extend them along, so. Any questions?
This is a good arrangement. It still has language in it. I mean, it's beneficial for both of us. and it
Exactly.
helps us to move forward a good relationship. As I noted in my memo on it, it still has the language in there that has a provision if there's a change in use of facilities during the life of the contract, it allows this contract to essentially terminate with 60 or
120 days.
day notice. And that's, I mean, when we originally did that, we were looking at the potential of having to have a discussion about mothballing the facility. I mean, that technically is still an option depending on what happens with finances as time goes on.
Right.
It's something that potentially occurs as the school has some auditorium discussions. Do we have some, over the next couple of years, discussions where we maybe look at different partnership opportunities, whether at that location or somewhere else? Maybe that the schools have nothing that really fits for us to be in partnership with anyway, but it allows at least that flexibility to be there. And it leaves open the option of if the hotel developer comes back with a proposal that the council is amenable to, you could look at that as something that fits within that caveat as well.
So you guys had an event Saturday, right?
Yes, a great event.
With packed house?
We had over close to 1,000 people, so it
Okay.
was a good thing. And it was basically Kelly Wilson, a local person, and but we had great results with it. So
And you got 1,000 people on pretty short notice, really, so.
yes, short notice and basically outside our normal scope because they were kind of outside of our Burlington area a little bit, you know, but down by Farmington, places that you didn't normally see, north of Missouri, which is great to actually bring people into our community.
Well,
And of
maybe
course,
we'll-
they came and they probably ate and did all their
Maybe
little
we'll
things.
get them back again now that they know that we're here,
Right,
so.
and then we have we are packed the next couple months. We have something at the auditorium about every weekend. This weekend is for our, basically our police officers, so we'll have Crime Stoppers there this next weekend. So trying to bring back the community in our outlying areas, and that's
Oh,
huge.
I'm pretty excited about what you guys are doing, and I appreciate the efforts and, putting Burlington on the map, so to speak, so thank you.
Well, thank you. And we've got a lot of great new ideas coming out and hopefully been looking at other venues that are outside our scope and seeing if we can make that all work within ours. So thank you for having belief in us.
Thank you.
While we're still on this topic,
Yes.
Stephanie, would you like to come up and talk about what Crime Stoppers is doing with this weekend? Or
Or no?
It looked like a no there.
That
No,
was a
she didn't want
That
to.
was a,
Yeah, it's our annual fundraiser, Crime Stoppers fundraiser. So it's at the auditorium. It starts at 8 o'clock. David Kroll's playing. We're calling it the Leap Party because it's on Leap Day, the 29th. Law Enforcement Appreciation Party is what we're saying Leap stands for. So again, it's $15 to get in the door. Again, it's our biggest fundraiser of the year. We raise the money to pay out the tips that we give out for Crime Stoppers. So any questions?
Everybody please attend.
Yeah, tickets at the door or from any member. I think Weird Harold's, the box office down at the auditorium, so. But it's the same price whether you buy them before or at the door, so.
Sounds fun.
I did occur to me, I do have one question regarding the BRE lease. Now, so they are in control of the depot, the port, and the auditorium. Is there, what about I can't remember who has the room in the auditorium that's leased. Are they able to work on that? It used to be the Legion Hall, the American
I think
Legion.
it's still American Legion.
They're one of those legacy events and one of those that has an ongoing relationship and lease for the
So that's
facility. So
something
they
that
get
they
to
will-
still have that area.
Okay.
And it's one that we still make sure that we do our best to honor. But they have, and you have storage space that you have set aside?
We have storage space for them, and also if you look at your history of Burlington Memorial Auditorium, in the agreement that when that was built, the Legion room has to stay. So no
That's
matter
what-
what happens.
that's what I thought I remembered
It is,
something.
it's actually, when that building was built, that was written in there that they had to stay. So,
Okay.
Cool.
Does anybody else have any questions? Jim, you got anything else to add to that?
No, you're probably gonna come up with something else that I don't know the answer to, but
Well, great job, BRE. I'm glad to have you there and for a longer period of time.
I just thought you knew everything.
you used to think that.
All right, we'll move on to the proposed consent agenda. Number one would be a resolution approving nuisance abatements for various properties. Is there anything on there? I do have a question for you, Eric, on some of those names that we see perpetually. We're basically doing their stuff for them. When does that end?
Either when we acquire them, we do have, ultimately, if we acquire them or someone else buys the tax deed or takes it over.
So it's going on the taxes, when the person finally can't pay them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And somebody buys the tax.
The tax, yeah,
So-
I just wanted to get that out because it,
But again, Eric, those, if you have the same property and it happens repetitively, the fee associated on our end goes up.
Yeah, the second time in a year, it goes up to $200.
200, that's what I noticed that on one, so. Is that, so if it happens like 3 or 4 times, it continued increment?
Just 200 's the
Just
maximum.
200,
Well,
okay.
and I looked at the 3 properties on there, and the tax receipts have all been bought for them, so we're
Okay.
already being compensated.
Okay, all right, good,
List was shorter this time, right?
There's only 3.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I guess that's the silver lining.
All right, well, does anybody have any questions on that then? No, moving on. Looks like we have a resolution approving refund of beer and wine license for Majestic Estate LLC, doing business as Majestic Estate LLC. Anything on that? No? Okay. Number 3, resolution approving renewal of a taxi cab vehicle for hire license for Dennis Maines, doing business as Yellow Cab Transportation. Anything on that? Complies with our new regs, right? Anybody have any questions on these? Okay. And number 4 is similar resolution approving renewal of a taxi cab vehicle for hire license for Robin Canova, doing business as A to Z Taxi LLC. Any questions? No. Number 5 is resolution approving the intergovernmental transfer of public funds agreement between the Iowa Department of Human Services and the city of Burlington, Iowa.
So I don't really have much to say about this, other than unfortunately, we have to do it every single year. So it's just an agreement for the GEMT program that authorizes us to give money back to the Iowa Department of Human Services. So it's a supplemental program for Medicaid patients. We keep 60% and give the state 40% back.
Okay.
So far, we haven't had to do that.
So far, we haven't received anything, so we haven't given them anything back.
Any idea when we're gonna receive funds on that? Are we hearing anything? Or-
No, we had to submit some paperwork at the beginning of this month, so.
Okay.
They had 30 days to reply, so hopefully by the end of this month, we'll
Okay.
hear something. So,
Anybody with any questions? No? Number 6, resolution approving the residential anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan, procurement policy, excessive force policy, equal opportunity policy statement, and code of conduct as required by the Iowa Economic Development Authority Community Development Block Grant.
Eric?
These were some forms required, submitted from the Southeast Iowa Regional Planning Commission to us that are requirements for CDBG grant funds. They want the new mayor to have signature on them. These are ones that we've adopted in the past, but those 5 different forms are attached as exhibits. For example, the Locust project requires this, or any future CDBG projects requires this, so kind of a standard thing that we need to do to ensure we continue to receive those funds.
Okay, any questions there? I just about ran out of ink, but those are signed today. Number 7, set date for public hearings, consideration of fiscal year 2021 budget, and that'll be for March 16th, 2020. Number 2 is consideration of plans and specifications for the 2020 Central Avenue HMA resurfacing project, and that's March 16th, 2020. Yay on that one. And number 3, it'd be consideration on the property disposition with merge, April 6th, 2020, and that's regarding that police department property we talked about earlier. Any questions on those three? We'll have a hearing on those.
One thing I forgot with the merge, are they planning on, are they planning on being here next week?
I believe so, yeah.
So Brent should be available to talk on this project if you have any questions at that point.
I think the only thing I've heard from the public is that there's a feeling out there that they would like to make sure the building somewhat conforms with our downtown. Since we don't have guidelines, we've kind of encouraged that. So I'd like to talk to them about that
Sent
when
them
they
a
come.
message on that,
Okay.
so
All
I
right.
hear, yeah, I'll try and follow up with them this week again.
Thank
it.
you on that,
They're,
Eric.
they're aware of that, though.
Okay. Next up, discussion items, treasurer's report. Annette Crowner. Class 87, there you go, Shane, I did that for you. The second best class, class 80 was best, no offense.
Class of 80?
Yeah,
I wasn't even born then.
don't even start. Just gloss right over that, let's keep rolling.
So January's treasurer's report is in the packet. Everything's going along fine. There's nothing really that I would point out. I mean, the normal things that are just timing issues of us asking for reimbursements for different funding sources. On the expenditures, I would say the only thing that you might look at and see that's very low is like the insurance, and that's because we haven't paid it yet for the year. So you'll see that coming through soon, and that'll be
Okay.
one big chunk that comes through. Other than that, I mean, everything else is just going along.
Well,
We'll notice that when that goes through, I'm sure,
You will. It'll jump up to close to, it'll be over the percentage then,
yeah.
because we pay it all at one time, but. So did you guys have any questions?
Did you have something to add?
Well, just, you noted it, funds that are challenged are Recplex and golf course. The Recplex you see with a significant deficit. I mean, we'll do another large transfer in the spring, but
Well, and looking at it on a monthly basis, right now it's, they're both, don't have anything really going on at either one of them, so it's seasonal too, so
yeah.
we'll see. We'll see how it comes out at the end.
Let's hope for a good early spring for both those organizations.
Well,
Any other questions for Annette? Looks like we should be good.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 2 is support of a legal holiday for the Native American Indians. Merle Whiteside, is that you, sir?
Hello to everybody. Have you seen any of the literature that I left here?
Please, for the record, state your name and where you're from.
Merle Whiteside, I'm from just across the river.
Okay. There was some material in the packet that I reviewed.
Yeah, have you seen it all, or do I need to give you some here that I got with me?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and go through it with us? Because that way we can discuss it on the video meeting for people to hear what you're proposing.
So you don't need any more literature?
I don't need any handouts, but you can discuss what
Okay,
you
okay.
want to do.
Well, you're probably familiar that in 2016, I filed a petition for a national holiday for the Native Americans. And so the first time I left home, I went up in Wisconsin and met with some tribal headquarters up there. And I told this lady, I said, I drew this up, but it's not for me, it's, for the Native Americans. And she said, no, she said, we gotta have a non-Native American do this for us, so that's why I'm here. But since that time, I've been to the Canada border probably 3 or 4 times, to Florida and California and to up in Maine. And I went to all these reservations and met with the tribal people. And tell you the truth, so many places I've been, because I'm from Illinois and I was totally unfamiliar with Native Americans and their situations. But at this point, I think a holiday for the Native Americans would be the most honorable thing this country would have ever done. Because I think it would improve their morale and make their lives so much better, and make them feel like that they belong here instead of just being, under the situations where, so many of them has just continued to lose the acreages that they were given until, they're just, well, in my travels, actually, tell you the truth, I got familiar with, when I began to come to the most worthless part of the country you could find, well, this must be a Native American, reservation. And that's just about the way it was. But, so anyway, I've been going different places and asking for resolutions from the cities and counties and stuff, and so far I've been pretty real successful, and so that's why I'm here. Different ones, but I had some injuries in my age, and I thought, I ought to just quit, but everybody's just continued telling me I can't quit, so that's why I'm here. I guess as long as I can keep moving, I'll continue, to try to seek the holiday. But the facts is, and probably most of you are pretty familiar with Washington, if everybody in the whole state of Iowa passed a resolution tonight, it would probably be years before it would ever happen. And if you're familiar with Lewis and Clark, Clark was supposed to have been made a captain, when he went on the expedition. And in the year 2000, he was made a captain. So that's about 200 years. So I hope, lots of people told me I wouldn't be here, that this holiday would probably happen someday, but I probably wouldn't be here. But after learning about Clark, I wouldn't be surprised if any of us wouldn't be here. But anyway, it's just really sad. So much of the situation. One lady, I don't know if anybody here is much familiar at all with some of the activities and stuff the Native Americans, the way they do, They get a card, that tells their name, their reservation, and how much Native American blood they have in them. And she told me that was her job to, get the cards, take the information, get the cards. And just said Native Americans that would come in that was about 100% Native American would ask her if she could put 35 or 50% on the card because they were ashamed of who they were. That's almost, unbelievable that in this country you would think nobody would be ashamed of themselves. But, so anyway,
So you would like us to consider a resolution supporting
yeah,
that? I see you included one from Hannibal.
yeah. And I got one from Fort Madison a while back.
Okay.
They were,
Are they all picking the same day, sir? Are they all giving, doing the resolution for the same day? Do you have a specific date that?
no, everybody just does it,
Well, what they're doing is putting out a resolution in support of the idea.
Gotcha.
Then he's gonna have to take those, because if it's gonna be a federal holiday, it's gotta go to the federal level.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
yeah.
So what you would be looking for us to do is just create a resolution supporting the concept. And that way you could put it in your portfolio for other submissions. Is that correct?
Well, basically, the Hannibal one was the first one I got, and so I've left it for people to copy off from or use or whatever, and but most all the resolutions that I've got I've already taken to Washington,
Okay,
And so if I would get some from you folks, it would probably just be in a matter of time that I would be delivering it to Washington also.
okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Whiteside?
My only question is why January 15th?
There hasn't been, you mean for a date for the holiday? There hasn't been a date picked for the holiday. That was just the day that Girl Friday wrote it up, was January the 15th.
So if we pass a resolution, is it in support of it being on January 15th or just in support of it being?
No, it'd
carried?
just be in support of
Okay.
it. And to answer your question about that,
Because January 15th is Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, and I
yeah,
don't know that it probably
no.
sends the right
Well,
message.
Washington doesn't think that, that it should be like, but that would be up to the, the Congress, Senate, and everybody. But the Native Americans that I've talked to about what would be a good holiday, most of them seem to think that March and April, because it's a coming of spring, new life and new grass, and it seemed to be kind of like a gospel or worship, something they had in their religion, is some celebration or something about the coming of spring. So that's totally not up to me, or it would have to be debated, with them. But the only thing that any of the congressmen ever said to me was that they would like to see it in a month where there wasn't another holiday.
Sure.
So anyway.
Okay. Does anybody else have any further questions? Jim, there's no real ramifications to us by creating, so.
This is up to your discretion.
Yeah.
If you want to see this come forward,
All right.
we can have this on probably this next Monday's council meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
No, I think it's a great idea. I just wonder when you get on a higher level, a federal level, pardon me, usually they have these with a certain person in mind, George Washington or Lincoln. I mean, have you thought about someone that represents Native Americans and having it be their birthday, or does that cause too much conflict among all the different entities?
You mean, would I come up with a Native American, like Crazy Horse or something?
I'm thinking Sacagawea. I'm thinking we need more women holidays.
Well, now that you brought that up, I could, if you got time and want to listen to me, I was in Pocatello, Idaho. Are you familiar? And the Shoshone-Bannock people are just a little bit north of there. And the first lady that I got to visit with was Sacagawea.
Oh, awesome.
So she was picked, at a real young age out of a huge contest, and she went to Washington. And so the minted coin, is Sacagawea. Well, I got to meet her. And so anyway, it kind of, she was just really wonderful to visit with. And
You got to meet her. How old are you?
Pardon me? I'm too old and getting worse. But anyway, before I left, she said, well, I got a present, I'd like to give you. And she had a coffee cup with Shoshone-Bannock people and stuff on it, So I said, well, I got a present in the truck. I said, that I guess if you hadn't told me about that, I'd have forgot it. But I said, Benji mentioned I got a present in the truck I'd be glad to give you. She said, well, what is it? And I said, it's an arrowhead. And she said, well, bring it in, but she says, I'm not sure I can accept it. And so I went out and got it, and I told her I just picked it up about 10 days out of the field, when I was out working in the field. And she said, she looked at it for a long time, and she said, these are supposed to be left right where you find them. And I said, well, as a farmer and working in the fields, I said, a big piece of machinery come along, it's not going to be in the same place. And I said, besides, most of them nowadays are broken, you know, some ways, but this was really a nice one. It wasn't all broken or anything. So she looked at it for quite a while, and she says, well, I can accept this one, and I'll pray for it.
Wow.
So anyway.
That's
Probably
interesting.
probably the first person I ever gave one of my arrows was
Yeah.
Sacagawea.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You know, it was just like meeting the president or somebody.
Oh, yeah,
meeting-
definitely.
Meeting with Sacagawea. Really, you know, if anybody ever gets a chance to travel, and like, that'd be a good place to go. And another thing, you know, that she brought to my attention, and I thought about that, you know, just as soon as she said it. She said, you know, if it hadn't have been for Sacagawea, we would just be forgotten people. And I thought, boy, she hit the nail on the head, because so many of them are just forgotten people. And,
Well, we do have a city just south of us, Keokuk, that's named after Chief Keokuk, so there is a tradition in this area to honor people like that, so.
so, well, anyway, thanks for inviting me, thanks for listening to me. and-
Good luck with your mission. I hope you're successful before
Well-
300 years.
I hope it happens before
Yeah.
the Clarks did, but that's kind of a shame, really, you know.
Yeah,
'cause,
that took
you
that
know,
long.
You know, if you know anything about that situation, he was supposed to have been an equal captain to Captain Lewis. And even when they got back to, after the trip, you know, and they got back to St. Louis, they gave Captain Lewis 1,600 acres. And they only give Captain Clark 1,200 acres because he hadn't been made a captain. And Captain Lewis threw a fit and says, that's not right. He served as a captain, the same as I did. And so finally, they gave him the 1,600 acres.
Wow.
But it was 200 years, it was 2,000 when they made him a captain in this country. So, anyway.
And I saw what Sacagawea was paid to. Oh, the inequities.
She never got a dime, you know, for her service. But I do think they say that she's probably one of the most honored women in the whole world. And there's statues everywhere, you know, about her, and so I've read a few books and watched some videos, and pretty interesting, you know.
Well, it sounds good. So, okay.
I'm okay
I
with
was,
it,
you're gonna, we'll craft a resolution. And, do we have your contact info, Mr. Whiteside?
Yeah, it's on all those papers.
Okay, it is on,
that
I thought I saw it in there.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure we include a letter of support as well, so that you
Very
can
well,
have both those
very well.
pieces, okay?
Well, thanks to all
Yeah.
of
Well,
you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Been a pleasure.
Nice to meet
visiting
you.
with
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks for your efforts.
Yeah.
Number 4, viewing of the city council meetings
We skipped
on.
3. Hold up. Number
Which one did
3?
I miss?
You skipped 3?
I did? Oh, I crossed that out, I did.
You got ahead of
Uh,
yourself.
Number 3 is funding request for the Tiger Technical Assistance.
Night.
Good night, sir. Who was taking that one?
Steve, you want to just come forward with the requests that you had on this?
Hi, Steve.
Good afternoon. I had contacted Main Street, Iowa, when I saw that they had done a consultation in another town that was undergoing a major streetscape construction, and I said, hey, you know, is this something they typically do? And it is something that Main Street, Iowa does. They can provide 80% of the cost to bring in a consultant for about a 2 or 3 day visit. They pay for the 80% plus their travel and lodging. The local Main Street program pays 20%, which is $750. And so what this person does, comes in, conducts several stakeholder roundtable discussions and a number of individual one-on-one business visits ahead of, maybe say half a year ahead of a major streetscape project, to determine how can they best survive that in terms of their economics. Are there alternate ways to get in and out of the business? What can they do to kind of get people to not be scared off by the idea of construction. So we think it would be obviously really beneficial to our businesses, the downtown in general. I really wasn't aware of what kind of mechanism there would be for this. So I asked Eric and Jim, is this something that could be wrapped in with the cost of the Tiger Grant project? I'll leave that in your capable hands. But I do think it's something that would be really beneficial.
So we can't wrap it in with the cost of the Tiger Grant, but if the council were willing to pay the $750, it would be a general fund expense, and it would be something that would help to coordinate, and this is gonna be, it will be a difficult process.
I'm all right with it.
I know that there is some increasing anxiety among some of the business owners, and
we
they're
want to
asking me things
push
like,
that down because
how
I
long,
understand
how
their
long, what's
anxiety,
the
but we
duration?
also- We also want people not to be scared off by it because, you know, if we get a bunch of business owners that are nervous and then they communicate that to the public and the public will stay away. And we don't want that. We want them to come down. It's going to be a little inconvenient. There's no question about that, but it's not the end of the world. So whatever we can do to alleviate those fears and help those businesses, I think would be a positive move.
Oh, and it's nice to have somebody with experience come in and say that people have been through this before and this is how they dealt with it. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I think that there's some wisdom there.
I don't know if you have to have a grant agreement signed, or if you
What-
just
what
need a
they-
resolution
What
where we
they
agree to
typically
pay.
do, communicating with Main Street Iowa, typically they would invoice the local program for that after the visit. So we could do that, and then Downtown Partners turns on invoices the city, whatever your pleasure is, so.
So
Would you
you
wanna
would just,
handle
you would need from this side, a resolution authorizing expenditure of up to $750 towards this service through Main Street Iowa.
Yeah.
Okay?
So we can get that drafted and put on this next
Yeah,
agenda.
I think everybody's in favor, right? Yep, let's do it.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. All right, now viewing of city council meetings on Mediacom.
In your packet was just a little recap. So I don't know if anybody has gotten complaints about the Mediacom lately. I know sometimes it goes in waves. People, you know, the quality isn't as good. Basically, and Rich can probably help me explain a little bit, but when the signal leaves here, it travels all the way out to Beaverdale on old lines, and it's down converted. You know, we have high def in here, and it gets down converted. I don't know if you want to add anything, but.
Yeah, the signal, our channel with Mediacom is standard definition, so it gets down converted when it leaves here. But then traveling over 40-year-old copper lines out to their head end, the signal just degrades so much. So they had proposed originally to bring fiber into this building for $40,000 at our cost. And so we then pursued some other options as it was not a tenable cost.
Okay.
Right, so then that's where we I recap the solutions there. So the first one is, we'd still be doing fiber optic, but it'd be down at the police department, because they already have the line closed. So we would just have to buy some equipment. Like you said, you could see that, the $4,000, and then they charge us another $4,000 to finish off installing the fiber optic. So that would be a one-time cost of about $8,100. That equipment would be located at the police department, right? So, which is an item that we do like, an option we do like. So solution 2 is streaming the video to Mediacom, streaming it to Mediacom via the internet. So that means we're going to take the signal, send it out to their hub. We will have equipment there that we will have to pay for, but they're going to have control over it, and that's the $2,600 expense. And then we will have to set up another reoccurring internet cost of $129 a month, which is about $1,500 a year. And then the solution 3 is just to leave as is, as people are watching it right now. If we're not getting a lot of complaints or, you know, feedback, we try to get Mediacom if they could give us any indication of how many people are watching, but they don't have that data. So.
I guess in the other point, like last week's problem that we had, was that associated with this?
No, No. The problem we had last time was a piece of equipment in here that wouldn't reboot, so the video wasn't going out to our streaming option either, or Mediacom.
So it's
we-
not that this is gonna solve all our problems,
Right.
but it's at least one of the problems that we have on an ongoing basis.
Well, it's just the poor quality of the
Video and
video.
audio.
And then we put solution 4 would be to stop sending the signal to Mediacom at all, if you have any interest in doing that. It is available online to stream through our website, so.
Do you have a preference on which
Thank you.
solution? Do you two have a
But
preference?
there's drawbacks to all of them. The drawback to number one was that right now, all the equipment we have is in this building, so when, like last week, to troubleshoot it, we just had to be here. But to now put equipment at the police department, we potentially are running back and forth between these buildings before a meeting, trying to get the equipment working. The drawback to number two is now we have equipment in their building that we don't have access to if it needs to be rebooted, plus there's recurring costs.
Yeah, it'd take about almost short of 4 years to pay, to get up to the 8,000.
Exactly. And so, there's drawbacks to both of those. Obviously, leaving it as is, if it's not acceptable viewing for the citizen, then that's, not acceptable either. So.
Is there a side benefit to proposal 1 as far as do we already have fiber optic at the PD?
Apparently, it's very close, so that's why there's so low cost for them to bring it in, whereas to bring it here was like the.
But I mean, there would be the side benefit that the PD would have fiber optic available.
Well, they already have fiber for us.
They already do, okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was trying to
This
figure
would be fiber just strictly dedicated to that.
For that,
Now, I suppose
okay.
potentially down the road, if we wanted to use it for dual purpose, we could throw some more equipment at it, but right now, they're fed by fiber already.
I think based on a staff perspective, we would recommend the solution 1 if we're going to do anything, because then we have control over the equipment. But another option, I put that at the bottom too, is if we maybe want to try to do some sort of survey, if we put, right now when we're not live on Mediacom, that you can go to that station and it says City of Burlington, a great place to live, work, and play. It tells you when our meetings are, and it gives us the website. I mean, we could change that to say,
Here's how to stream it.
well, here's how to stream, yep. And also, if you really are interested in us keeping this station going and making the quality better, please call us, because people that might be watching it aren't gonna maybe have internet or streaming, And then maybe we could get some calls and you guys could see how many people we're touching with Mediacom.
Yeah, I was wondering if we were obligated to have a TV station, so.
No.
But it's just Mediacom, it's not Dish or Direct.
And,
So how many Mediacom customers are even in Burlington?
yeah, we don't know. They won't tell us that information, and if they have viewership statistics, they're not sharing it with us.
So-
But even on our streaming thing, I went back for the last year, we only had 4 of our meetings that had more than 50 views in the last year. Most of them have 2 dozen views on our stream, so how many people are watching on the Mediacom channel? Maybe the similar amount, I don't know. Now,
Yeah.
for those people, if that's their only way, that maybe is important.
See, I've had complaints about our streaming too.
Right.
So that doesn't do anything to fix our streaming.
What complaints have you had? When you get them, if you could relay them to me, it would be
I
great.
will definitely do that from now
Because
on.
we need to know, because that should be a great signal, and as far as we know, it has been working, except
Okay.
last
Last
week.
week it didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I've
now
had-
last week-
Just in this room, there's like 20 pieces of equipment to get the signal out of this room, so any given week, one of those pieces of equipment is not right, then the
Then,
stream's
okay.
We were able to put the audio of the meeting last week out there, so,
Actually, yeah.
yeah, so,
But
I
it was
mean,
only like 2 minutes when I first
No,
joined.
Well, but-
the whole thing is there now.
yeah,
okay.
we were able to get the audio out there so somebody can listen to the meeting, but they won't get to see
Well,
anything.
I
so.
for one would be interested in a survey, just to see what their options are. Because, Bill brought up, there's so many people that either cut the cord, which you're not reaching unless they're stream, or Dish or
Direct.
Or direct, I mean, in my personal family, I don't know anybody that has Mediacom anymore. No offense, Mediacom, but, so that's the number one solution. It seems like the best, but if you break it down to per subscriber even, that's pretty expensive, so.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I'd lean more towards number 4. Let's roll with the times.
Yeah, or number 3, just let it go until it's not usable.
Well, we could,
That doesn't cost us anything to keep it the same.
And
then
then
again,
until when it finally fails completely, then we would be at number 4.
yeah, well,
Okay.
we could do we could still do number 3, that's what we're doing now, and put a survey out there and try to
Yeah.
get some I would like to have some citizens input, at least I would,
Okay.
so.
it doesn't cost us anything to do that, because I think
Okay.
we're not gonna have them come back to the internet. I think we have to put a phone number out there. I mean, I guess we could put both options, but we don't wanna rule out those people that are gonna watch it on TV and then, hey, you gotta get on the internet to get in touch with us. That might not make any sense either. So, but if we could put a local phone number to City Hall to call and then, ask them a few questions, we can work on that and do that and then we can just report back maybe in about a month to see if we've had anybody call us and what they're saying. And you guys might get some feedback now that we're talking about it. So.
Okay, I'm on the number 4 or 3, leaving it as is. Question I did have though was, for persons, if we go away from Mediacom, do we have the ability to set up some kind of like teleconference line? So if somebody doesn't have the internet, but they do have a telephone, they could call and listen to the meeting? They wouldn't be able to see it, but they could listen to it.
I don't know.
Is that a possibility?
I'm sure it's possible.
But
We'll have to see if it's.
how much,
What
much
the cost
equipment
should
is it
be,
gonna
yeah.
require?
To leave a phone line, it would have to be some kind of a party, it's gonna be expensive, because it would be like a teleconference line that multiple people join in to hear that, and the line would just be muted from incoming audio. We'll look at it.
Hopefully.
I don't think it's something we have to look at right now. I'm
No.
just saying, when Mediacom goes away, because Bill already said the people cutting the cord, we just cut the cord 6 months ago. We don't have Dish, DirecTV, or Mediacom.
But
And
some
I
of
don't
your
know
most-
anybody who does have Mediacom, like John said, so.
Generally, cutting the cord is a younger
Younger,
generation thing.
that's where, yeah.
Except some of your most avid followers are older people, they're the most concerned about the
Right.
case, so they may be the most dependent on something like Mediacom, so,
Well,
without knowing.
Yeah, I think if you did the number 3, and you put a survey out there, but also with the survey, I would put the instructions on how to stream.
Sure.
Right? And that way, you may have a few people that, oh, that's how I do that, because I give my mom credit. Mom, if you're watching, my mom's pretty spry for 78 years old when it comes to technology. She would stream if they would show her how to do it. But then I'd hear about everything I was doing wrong, so I don't.
Okay, and this isn't something that just came up. I mean, I think a year ago, we started to kind of work with Mediacom to say, how could we improve this signal? So I think a year and a half ago, we were getting some complaints as when we started this process. So this isn't anything that is new. It's just taken us this long to get to this point where it's even reasonable to consider doing anything to improve it. And it doesn't mean that we're saying we want to do it or we need to. It's just, we wanted to give you options before maybe, anything else happens or
Appreciate
people
that.
keep complaining, so.
I had a
We-
question, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
I had a question about option 1. So if we went the fiber optic route, is that cost just a one fee time? And then that should be the least problematic, right? I mean, over the long haul.
Well, the signal would be clear, but there's a lot of equipment involved, and so as we find out just in this room, there's so much equipment involved, in any given week, one piece of equipment isn't right, And so we come in and we're scrambling around which piece of equipment isn't right. Well, now there's gonna be several pieces of equipment at the police department and at their end of the thing, and it just adds more pieces of equipment to it. Any one of that could be not right, needs to be just rebooted or something. So the signal would be rock solid. We would give them a good signal when everything is working perfectly.
I like that idea, because I do want more citizen involvement, and I don't want our message to be muddled, and I think right now it is. People say, well, wait, I could hear you, but I couldn't see you, or the picture went, I hear lots of, because people they want to be engaged, they want to be involved. And
Yeah, and it
we have
hasn't
to have
been
it-
good for a long time. It keeps getting worse, and then something will happen. It'll be a little bit better, but it is generally declining for years, the quality of the signal. The signal leaving this building is good. It's just not good by the time it gets hooked.
So, let's see a show of, where you at, Bill? 1, 2, 3, 4?
I'm at 3, 4, but a survey, because I don't know how many people have Mediacom I don't know how often it's getting out
Yeah,
there.
without them giving us numbers, it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to justify it. Linda?
There's quite a few elderly people that I know that watch it with Mediacom, so I'd hate to get rid of that option and tell them you gotta get a computer and you have to stream it. I think we're gonna lose our audience and cause a rumble, and I don't want a rumble.
Well, you're not gonna go away from it, though, if you stay with solution 3. It'll just be what it's been.
It's not good.
That's, we had some complaints, yes.
I don't have a problem with any of the options. I don't like 2, but I mean, I would prefer 3 or 4. Tell you what, if you're out there right now and you're watching us on television through Mediacom, shoot us an email, give us a call, let us
Text
know.
or something.
I mean, if you're watching now, you're probably a regular, somebody who watches regularly. So we need to know whether or not you are actually watching, so we can make this decision.
I agree with Matt, and I'm really leaning towards 3 or 4. We cut the cord too.
I would say, let's stay where we're at for right now as we get some information from the survey, but let's also make sure we definitely have it out there how to stream.
Sure, and so, since you've mentioned the potential for calling, if the people can't stream it, they probably can't email, so they should call. And I would think maybe calling the city manager's office, and Katie will take that
We can
message
give,
is,
should we give out Jim's cell?
no.
No,
But it's the easiest number to find. People
Yeah,
can
my
find-
cell is music.
Yeah,
All right.
people can find the city manager's office, and we'll take it,
Or
that
Lincoln
statistic
Island.
to me.
well, we have come a long ways in improving this setup, so, I'd like to continue to push towards that, but I think we need a little more information. Sure. Okay. And the last thing would be, Rich or Stephanie, hey, it would be helpful to know how many subscribers you have in Burlington for us to be able to make that decision, Mediacom.
Luke Sneller says he's watching online, so.
Good. He's on.
I
There's
watch
one
us-
vote.
I watch this on YouTube while I'm doing the dishes.
He is. He was in earlier.
All right, Luke, nice job. Number 5, goal session with Midwest Municipal Consulting LLC.
So Elizabeth Hansen has stepped into the void that was created when Jeff Schott retired last year, and the Institute of Public Affairs was disbanded by the University of Iowa due to funding issues. She's presented a proposal, $39.50 plus expenses, which is just a little bit below what Jeff's is. Actually, the $4,200, that's her standard fee, is, I think, right at what Jeff's was. She has helped Jeff in the past with some of these, so she's got a pretty good background in this. If you look at the structure that she's proposing, it's very similar to what he did, which is based off of that experience. We have typically done goal-setting sessions every other year immediately after an election, and it would put this at the time to do that. It's in the budget. If you're comfortable moving forward, I would recommend moving forward and working with her. She's got a schedule that's included in here that's probably off by a couple of weeks now, but it'd be pretty similar to trying to get this accomplished during the months of March through maybe the beginning of May.
I thought her credentials looked very strong, and I thought it sounded like a good idea.
Well, we've done it up until now, so, and it's in the budget, so I'm a yes.
I'm
Bill?
fine.
Yes.
Okay.
Matt?
Yep.
Robert?
Yep.
Let's roll with
All
it.
right. And if I need to have that approved by resolution, we'll have that on this next agenda. But it's a budgeted items, and
Okay. I definitely, my one caveat would be, I want to make sure it's a time when all of us can be here and participate, so we'll have to work on that. Moving on, number 6, it looks like we have one appointment. Linda, you got that up there, or no? It's Economic Development Advisory Board, Commission member Elizabeth Van Leck?
Van Veck Sally.
Van Vleck Sally, okay, thank you for that. Has resigned on 12/12, and Angela Shipley has expressed an interest in serving. It's recommended that we appoint Angela. Does anybody have any questions on that? And that'll be an unexpired term, which will expire in July 1st, 2021. And her application's on there. I would assume with both of them being of the same gender, we're compliant there as well, so. Any thoughts? No? Okay. The last thing would be, is there any future discussion any council members would like brought forward at this time? Excuse me. Naps? Okay. I think we're done. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me finish. Well, I'll just ask, is there anything, Don, that you have?
Hi,
Chief?
Don.
Chief? Nick? Steph? Eric?
Do have one thing we're gonna add to the agenda.
get what?
We had council had previously approved, payment to the Great River Housing Trust Fund, $20,000 for match for their programs. We had, paid that out of our housing demo fund, which is basically zero or negative. So talking to Jim, we'd recommend having that come out of the general fund this year where there's some funds. So adding a resolution to do that, to this next meeting.
Is that all right with you? Okay. Do you have anything to add, Jim?
Nope.
Okay. Council, any council members have anything to add? No?
Remember to go to the fundraiser this Saturday.
Yep, this Saturday, tickets at the gate, $15. And let's get out of here. Thanks, everyone.